everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we have Mo Zahabi. He is the Senior Product Consultant with Cox Automotive. He sits over top of really key digital products that thousands of dealers use in the United States. Mo, thanks so much for being on today's podcast.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and speak with you.
So, Mo, before we talk about Accelerate, which is Cox Automotive's digital retailing platform, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been in the industry a number of years. You had a number of roles. What would people most recognize your name as it's associated with products or services in the auto industry?
I made my start after coming out of school. I studied computer science. I actually got pulled into dealership by my father. So I worked in the retail side for a little over 10 years and held a lot of different roles, but really made an impact in the realm of e-commerce, running BDCs, internet departments, establishing really the battle plan for the dealership. And ultimately, I think what most people know me for is my work at VIN Solutions. I came here shortly after leaving retail when we first founded the company under some great leadership like Mike DeLay, and got to work with some great people like Kendall Billman along the way. So some great influencers, but really, trying to influence the role of product to better align with what not just our customers' needs are, but what our customers' needs and expectations are, and how to better fulfill them, knowing that if we can make our customers happy, we have a better ability to make our customers happy. And that's really started to span into different roles. I've worked over the Dealertrack and Cox solution for a while, and now bringing on board Dealer.com and digital retailing, trying to align the different tools and help streamline a lot of the different processes. I think what most people know me for is my influence on the process side of the product.
Well, that's going to be an important conversation today, because as my brother Glenn and I have been traveling around the country helping dealers, small and large, implement digital retailing, process is really more important than the tech stack, because without great process and training, nothing works. So let's start a little bit from the beginning on Cox Accelerate. It's been out a number of years. When was it first introduced, Mo, and how many dealers approximately have that technology on their website?
So really the initial DR solution was built out by Dealertrack around 2012. And today's it's probably on its fifth generation of the digital retailing technology. Now, we refer to it more as Cox Automotive Digital Retailing than Accelerate. But it had roots that were influenced by Dealertrack and Make My Deal and Dealer.com innovations. Now, today, we currently have right around 5,200 dealers across more than 30 different OEM brands that utilize and capitalize on the digital retail offering itself.
Well, that's great. And so you have the ability to kind of look back over time, see some of the assumptions that you made, look at the history, and now reflect on how dealers are using the tools. If you had to look back, Mo, and knowing that you're new to leading up the digital retailing charge and making sure that the product is serving both customers and the dealer community, what is Cox learning about the product? Meaning, dealers have heard about digital retailing. Some of them are stepping their toe in the water. A few are diving in head first. What has been the more recent evolution of the product development, say, in the last 12 months?
Well, I think part of it's going to be product development. Part of it is an understanding of, one, dealers don't understand what you alluded to, the true process of implementing it in the first place and how to go about it, because there is no playbook for that. And then two, customers don't know what it is as well. I mean, you got to think of it from that perspective. If people are going out using digital retailing right now, they don't have a playbook of how to do it either. They haven't bought a car via a digital retailing experience before. So there's some potholes, more or less, that they might, have to run through in order to go ahead and have an excellent experience in that regards. And we'll have to figure that out with the customer based on what we learn from them. But I think that things that we're learning right now is there needs to be more integration. There needs to be more connectivity, and areas in the past where we saw some hiccups were when a lead comes in, for example, and we have an outdated ADF XML format that we deal with right now. I mean, when was the last time they made a change to it? 2000. It's been around forever. How do we handle that to make sure that when a lead comes in, we're not clicking on a link and following it out, and concentrating on things like making sure there's connectivity into desking so that when a customer shows up, we have the ability to take that information, push it over, and really streamline the effectiveness of what digital retailing is supposed to serve, which isn't always going to be about saving the customer time. It's more about making it a better experience. And, we've heard lots of numbers thrown around about how much more a customer will spend on a great experience. And somebody said $1,000. They'll spend $1,000 more. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I know customers that will drive 200 miles for $100. So that's a difference in opinion and who you ask in certain situations. But I think really ultimately what we're learning right now is there definitely needs to be better connectivity, a better usage of the information and passing the information. And that's something that we're going to have to look at moving forward as well, because as these new digital retail customers come back into market in a couple of years, we need to learn how to market to them effectively moving forward. Because if, Brian, you bought a car on digital retail, why would I send you the same follow-up and tell you to come in with your trade and let me look at it when I should be driving you back to a digital retailing experience because it worked for you? As this starts to evolve more, we're going to have to continue to learn from the expectations of the customers as well as the expectations of the dealership, because there are a lot of different challenges that exist out there in the marketplace today.
So, Mo, let's tackle it, because one of my biggest frustrations as I have the opportunity to look at really all the digital retailing platforms out there, I've written a book about it. We're working on a playbook right now, Glenn and I. But dealers are frustrated that they have this very rich, robust tool on their website, which has trade information and finance information and lots of details, some with F&I products, some with accessories. I mean, each platform is a little different. And then it gets shoved in the comments field or hyperlink in the CRM. It seems that when we help a dealer implement digital retailing, the biggest problem is that the teams seem to have to use two different tools, two different dashboards. So let me put you on the spot. The Cox Automotive digital retailing platform is, in a sense, in an ideal position because you have and own Dealer.com and you own VIN Solutions and you own Dealertrack. How come today, at least it's not my knowledge, that all of that rich data in the digital retailing tool can be put into the proper fields in the CRM, so we're not using note field, we're not using hyperlink? Why has it taken so long? You guys have had the lead on this for years.
I can't give you a reasoning why it's taken so long. I think some of it's been when you try to put a bunch of companies together, whether or not they're the best in class or, the best option out there, you have different mindsets, and there is a little bit of struggle there, just to be transparent. Now, we have solved for a lot of that. And right now, if we receive a lead, example in VIN Solutions from the DR tool, we have the ability in a not in notes field. It's not hidden anywhere. It actually comes in the ADF XML lead, the structure of the deal, without having to click out and view it, because there has to be alignment. And in the past, I mean, we've heard the different debates between you've got to work the deal and not the lead. And I'm a big proponent of the fact that, yes, you do have to work the lead, because no customer just shows up and say, hey, I submitted a DR lead online, and I'm here to finalize it. You've got to nurture a lead. So in order to do that, your staff in the dealership has to have transparency to it. Otherwise, your messaging back to the customer will not align. And we understand that that personalization when it comes to follow-up is one of the biggest factors in success for a dealership. So we have gone ahead and solved for that. We do have the ability to see that.
Let me jump in and ask a specific question. So are you saying that when the Cox Automotive digital retailing platform sends a lead to VIN Solutions, have you modified the ADF XML, meaning you've created your own updated one, and you have new fields in the customer record that would be able to absorb the rich information from a DR process?
We do have the ability now inside that lead, yes, to obviously absorb what vehicle it is, obviously the make, model, trim level, everything that goes along with it, but also inside of the lead itself. And it displays clearly when the lead is received, what's been financed, the numbers on that deal. Obviously, we can absorb the trade. The next goal from there, Brian, is being able to take that information and with one click, being able to push it into VIN Solutions, desking solution. And, currently we, of course, have the integration with Unify where we can push directly in. But as you alluded to, not everybody wants to use two systems. And I'm of that opinion, as a former desk manager in dealership, I desk the front end, not the back end. And I want to stick with the solution that I'm most comfortable with using. So we really need to make it work for both audiences, both the front and the back of the dealership, and not make them fight over which tool they prefer. Rather make it work with both tools.
So Mo, and thanks for answering that. I mean, this is a hot topic. We are seeing different DR companies approach it from different directions. Some have started with a showroom and then eventually building tools for the web. Others have built tools for the web and said, provide or surface better payment tools and financing tools and just shove it into the CRM and eventually we'll figure it out. It seems to me that this rich conversation that could be going online is getting hung up as the data packet has to be pushed into desking. Obviously, there's politics between tools. When do you think you'll be able to see Cox Automotive digital retailing platform seamlessly push to VIN and then VIN push with one click to the desking tool when the customer comes in?
I can say it's definitely on the roadmap. I mean, it's something that we are vigorously working on from a product perspective, being able to make sure that experience becomes a reality. And the first step was in that lead, being able to push that monthly payment and the MSRP and the offer price and the cash down and the net trade value all the way down to, cash due at signing into that lead format. So at some point we can consume it and have the ability to push it into desking. The other part of that was being able to take that content and build it into some sort of customized process, which we were able to accomplish because as a DR customer, you cannot treat me the same way as a generic third-party lead that comes into your CRM. You have to have some customized process that pushes it more towards a concierge-based service and type of follow-up because they're there to work at their own pace. I mean, that's the whole concept of digital retail. Allow the customer to work the deal, work at their own pace. But throughout that process, kind of to what I alluded to earlier, where customers don't have experience with it yet either, we are going to have to give them guidance. So beyond being able to push it into a desking scenario, we have to be able to push it to our staff as well to allow them and give them guidance to work with the customer and help them along the process when the customer identifies that they need that type of help.
So Mo, let me ask you a question, which is really starting to divide the DR community in approach. So I look across the ecosystem, and CDK Global and Cox Automotive are the largest providers of dealer infrastructure, website, CRM, advertising, just in scale. But
Mhm.
both companies do not have an integrated or company-owned chat or messaging. What I'm seeing from the field is that, just like you said, consumers don't know how to do it. So they come in and they click customize their payments. They have no idea what the road is going to look like. Some are asked for their credit score. Some are asked for their VIN number on their car. I mean, no one knows. The average consumer does not know what to expect. And at some point, they get frustrated. We've filmed this. They want to ask questions. And it seems like the DR companies that have integrated chat and messaging with shared screens, meaning the consumer is getting through the desk, says, hey, there's someone on DR. The BDC can watch what they're doing, jump in proactively, or on a click get help. I think that when I've observed these behaviors, I don't care if the consumer goes all the way through. If they get as much as they need and willing to make an appointment, I'm fine. But both Cox and CDK don't own a chat or messaging tool integrated. Is that something that's missing? Because I know you have an open platform on dealer.com and you have certified vendors, but that doesn't mean that those vendors are keeping up with your DR tool, know how to coach their own remote agents on how to use DR. What do you see for Cox in this area of online assistance, knowing that consumers really don't know how to do it completely?
Well, we have partnered and we use Contact at Once as a preferred provider there for chat to provide in the Accelerate Elite product the ability to go ahead and text or communicate via chat. They do currently have on the roadmap initiative for two-way messaging as well to go ahead and accommodate for that. I think one of the biggest drivers that's going to help us moving forward with coaching the dealership how to handle that, because of the fact that it is new waters that they're treading, is the role of performance management pushed into the digital retailing product itself. And, I don't know if everybody's familiar with how our performance management role plays out, but it really is guidance from industry professionals on how to not only implement the process, but what to do in certain situations. So it is an ongoing coaching with these dealers that sign up for specific packages like, Accelerate Elite. Not only, how to implement the fact that you can use that two-way communication, that chat functionality, but also how to go about using it, more or less how to build out that quote-unquote concierge service for that buying experience itself. I don't know from a future standpoint it's ever a goal to buy.
Yeah. Do you think, today for dealers who are using your digital retailing platform or considering it, are you saying that your partnership with Live Person, formerly called Contact at Once, that their teams are trained and comfortable in walking someone through a DR deal, or are they being trained when that comes in to escalate it to a manager? I'm trying to understand, because when you see like companies like Gubagoo or CarNow and others who were built on top of messaging, they're saying it's absolutely requirement that your chat provider, your interactive help has to know how to use the tool. Can you give us any insights on how a Cox Digital Retailing customer on a dealer.com website with Live Person chat would handle a consumer who raises their hand in the middle of a DR session?
It does come down to training, which is something that we can provide through the performance management role, even if it is to a chat provider in that situation, because the ultimate goal for that performance management team is to deliver success, whether it's coaching the performance of the people there in the dealership and the concierge service, or coaching that chat provider on how to handle that situation, because it is a new arena, obviously.
That's right.
So in either one of those, yes, that's an area where we're definitely there to assist the dealership and make sure that they're getting the most out of essentially what comes down to it, the money that they're putting into the experience they're trying to deliver.
And Mo, one of the advantages that I see of both Cox and CDK is you have massive field support teams. And we haven't talked about process yet, but let's pivot to that right now. It seems to me, and now have been involved with dozens of dealers implementing DR on different websites and using different tools, that dealers really don't know how to set up a unique process in their CRM for handling DR leads. They don't have a clear process on how to have a smooth handoff in the showroom, meaning Glenn and I are out in the field with our associates working through all those details in your mind, and you've worked retail. Would you agree with me that digital retailing cannot be something slapped on a website and expect to work unless the vendor is going to be providing some significant in-store and remote coaching?
I'm in complete agreement. It's not like artificial intelligence. I mean, artificial intelligence, the reason it's so successful right now is, it's a plug-in, you turn it on, you're ready to go. It's going to give you feedback, or you might have a bot running in the background that helps you. With digital retailing, it's a whole new ideology, and it's one of those things that from the get-go, dealers really need to embrace it, but they have to be given some sort of directive, because it's just that they don't know. And obviously we know a lot here at Cox Automotive about understanding the customer's journey. And we've tried to utilize integrations to really increase the happiness of our customers while they're going through that journey, and even try to pinpoint where they are in that specific journey so we can make each experience unique. So what we need to do is provide the dealership not only with process, but more transparency and connect that online to in-store experience by properly tying shopping activities online to the CRM to ensure that follow-up, one, isn't repetitive and it's not irrelevant, but also by streamlining the workflow and connecting those shared data sources across the applications and solutions. Now, the biggest part of it is the process. And this is where really that performance management comes in, by helping the dealer implement the process, teaching them the way, helping them lay the groundwork on how to deliver on what the customer's expectations of the product and what the product's meant to be. And that's not only just for the customer, but the customer's customer in that regard. So we need to really look at it as helping the dealers embrace the change and walking them through the disruption that this new approach brings about. Process obviously being a big part, but there's also a major change that's taking place with the role of the salesperson in the dealership today, from that of I'm going to punch you in the gut and take all your lunch money approach that we had for years, to one that's more of a consultative, shoulder to shoulder approach, where we're letting them drive more of the process, and we need to understand where they are in that process and align with it. And sometimes that might come into conversations down the line about how to hire, who to hire, maybe new compensation plans as well. But again, process is the key, and we may need to try some different things along the way when we do this. So that being said, it's obviously going to take some time, but waiting for somebody to get it right and develop a playbook on how everyone else should be doing it and hope that it's not too late to get in the game and adopt their approach, that's kind of silly. So we need to be at the forefront of that. And that's one of those things I fought for when I was in dealership, was really trying to get out and change the process of how we do this. And my dealership was a little bit more forward thinking back in the day when I was still in store, which is about 15 years ago, where we already had gone to that approach of allowing me to work the internet and then handle the lead and establish the relationship and work the customer in the store and even spin paper, which gave me better transparency with the customer and allowed me to deliver in a different way with my customer. And the result was, we had higher grosses front and back, and, we had more, conversions from lead to deal, and it took less time, and CSI and service retention rates went up. But I think the problem is, you can't wait. You can't wait to implement the process.
Yes.
I've never met a dealer that said, I'm glad that I waited 3 years to get a website and get in the game.
Exactly.
It's got to be the same kind of way.
Yeah, that's right. No one said I put up my website too early. Some of the things that we're seeing out in the field, Mo, is dealers are looking for a revised workflow in the CRM. Obviously, making sure leads from a digital retailing tool come into CRM tagged properly. For some of our projects, that was actually a challenge. Then once the leads come into the CRM properly, how do you create a workflow that's relevant, as you mentioned, to the consumer? And then how do you pick things up when they come into the dealership? The one black hole that seems to be happening is that dealers don't know how to market. For those dealers listening today, let me just tell you, once you have implemented DR tools on your website and once you have solid process, this is not Field of Dreams where people just show up and say, wow, this is great. You have to have a marketing strategy. And one of the things I've been developing in the playbook for DR is how to look at your brand promise, how to create a modern brand promise, how do you merchandise that brand promise and focus it around the things that consumers care about most, which is convenient, fast, mostly online, and something that is more transparent. And Mo, what can you tell me about Dealer.com, who obviously runs millions of dollars worth of advertising? Has Cox put together like a turnkey DR marketing package? I've found that there's nothing that anybody is doing in the marketplace that satisfies my needs. So I've had to build them custom. What can you tell me about that thought process of once everything's in line, how do we re-educate consumers that at this dealership there's a new way to buy a car?
Well, I think it's a discussion that you have to have with each dealer individually, and some are going to be a little standoffish to the approach because they think that, anything above the fold and we try to change it, we're taking away key real estate. We're going to advise and we're going to try to educate the dealer on the changes that they need to make. Now, specific packages, not necessarily, because obviously the dealer has the ability to drive their expectations as well as us have influence on it. But I think that our teams are well educated on how to introduce that influence. If I was putting up a dealership, if I was going back in the store today, you better believe that the majority of my marketing is going to be around that digital experience and making sure that above the fold, right away, whether it's explaining to dealerships that you need to introduce yourself, you need to introduce how this program works. And I think one of the best ways to do that is the utilization of video. When you come to my page, for example, I'd be there right away saying, hey, welcome to the dealership. We have a new way of buying a car, and this is how it works. I don't think enough dealerships go through the effort to explain to the customer how it's supposed to work there and the value proposition that's behind it. I think that's where our associates come into play on, putting that concept out there for them. Now, it's really up to the dealership at that point to adopt it because we know that dealers are still looking at, bounce rates on, paid traffic versus organic and things like that. And we know it's going to take a while to go ahead and make them change their perception of what's necessary. And that goes all the way down to things like forms and how forms work on my site. Because with me, sometimes less is more. And we know that customers tend to bomb out when you ask for too much information or you ask for information at the wrong time. So it's really about gaining a better understanding of concepts in that area and being able to move away from what I'm comfortable with, embrace the change that's coming. It's just like, with you and Connor, if Connor goes out to a website, if they ask for too much information, what's he going to do?
Well, listen,
leave, right?
Yeah, I've shared at the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference some research I did. When a dealer puts on check availability or get e-price or schedule a test drive, less than 40% of the people who click on that button fill it out. Dealers require an email address, even though they know it's the least efficient way to communicate. And so what I found is less than 20%. Joe Chura even said it could be less than 10% two-way engagement based on lead forms, right? So we need to stop counting leads and start engaging consumers when they're on the site. And of course, We need to be there to help them when they get stuck. We need to create the demand through marketing. There's a lot of moving pieces in what we call a modern retail experience. We're going to be addressing them once again in November at the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. And we're going to have an opportunity to see the latest DR technology. We're going to have some workshops on digital retailing process. We're going to have some workshops on digital retailing marketing. Because at the end of the day, Mo, right? Digital retailing really is going to play into this attribution story, because if the DR tools are native to the website and eventually can be tracked down to a sale, it's really going to help us see which marketing messages are driving those engaged shoppers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, I mean, it's just, we've got to deliver a better path that aligns with the ideology of the customer, and whether it's how we treat things like forms or placement or verbiage that's used, we need to make some adjustments. And sometimes it's, looking outside of this industry. I think that we get so consumed with automotive, it's the only thing that we pay attention to, but we've got to look at maybe some of the big boys. I mean, why does Amazon's purchase process work so well? Because I can shop from anywhere. It doesn't matter what device I'm on. I can add stuff to my cart. When I'm ready to go ahead and buy, everything's in that cart. Right now, there's still a sort of fractured experience where I put things in my cart, but then I show up to the dealership and somebody pulled 3 of the things I put in that cart out, and I'm left to guess again. So there's a lot to work on. I mean, there's a lot left to piece together to make sure that when the customer shows up, everything's in that cart and they're ready to go.
So Mo, as we wrap up our conversation today, and we could talk for hours on this topic, for dealers who are on a dealer.com website, they're a VIN Solutions customer, or just looking for the best in class integrated DR solution, can the current Cox digital retailing platform work on any website, or is it just a requirement to have a dealer.com website?
No, I mean, we can work with other website providers and use the plugin. There are obviously distinct advantages, though, of working with the dealer.com platform, especially when we have a CRM like VIN Solutions plugged into it, because of the visibility and the transparency that we provide through our integrations. Key would be their, our VinLens integration, being able to really see online what's happening with the customer throughout those steps and being able to react to them in real time. I mean, obviously there's an advantage if I know a customer's on my website, especially if I knew who they are and when they return to my website, so that as a customer and their expectations change, we can align with those expectations. And then also being able to handle that lead, not only coming in to the dealership and the CRM platform and having a process that is really customized and specialized for that buying situation, but also when that lead's updated. When a customer comes back, because they're not going to do the whole process at once. We know that, I've seen stats anywhere from 4% to 11% of the actual customers complete the whole deal. Did they do it all at once? Typically, no. They come back later and they go, okay, I'll add my trade now. How do I know to follow up with that customer? Well, we provide a unique integration and unique process that can pick up on that as well, so that, again, we're aligned with the customer and where they are in that process. So I think that's where we have a distinct advantage. We can still plug in, we can work with others. We obviously have the integration to our, KBB sites, our Auto Trader sites, but if it's a third-party website, we can, produce the offering as well.
Great. Mo, what's the best way for a dealer who's listening to today's podcast to get more information on the Cox Automotive digital retailing platform?
Well, they can visit the Cox Automotive website. There is a lot of information that's out there, a lot of different studies that we provide for our dealers to help educate them, several different case studies that we can share out there. For me personally, I have no problem with a customer reaching out to me at my VIN Solutions office, and I'll be more than happy to either assist them or direct them to the proper person to work with them. But I think that the Cox Automotive and Dealer.com sites, with their ability to display information on digital retailing, walk them through the story, walk them through the different case studies that have been done to give them a little bit of levity and why they should make a move to digital retailing. Very easy to find, very easy to consume.
Great, great. For dealers who are listening to today's podcast, let me remind you that my conversation with Mo is one of a 20-part series talking to leaders and innovators in creating a modern retail experience. So please make sure you visit the podcast channel, which is brianpash.libsyn, Libsyn.com. Or you could search on the Apple podcast for the Pash On podcasts. If you just search my name, you get some old podcasts. So you should do the Pash On podcast. Also, I want to encourage dealers who are considering moving to a modern retail experience or just getting started to get registered for the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit in the beautiful Breakers Hotel. It's in Palm Beach, Florida in November. The team from Cox Automotive will be there to answer your questions about their tools and technologies. And of course, we'll have some updates by then because in this software development cycle, things are moving quickly. But we'll also be showing consumers testing all the digital retailing products. We're going to take the top 10 by volume digital retailing products, put consumers on them, see how they use them. We're going to have some really helpful panels and discussions. And Mo, I know that the Cox Automotive team is excited to be there. They participated in our spring conference in Napa. So we're really glad to have you on board. Mo, if you had to give dealers one final parting word why they really should be leaning in hard to transform their retail experience for consumers, what would it be?
I think it's the statistics. I mean, it's proven through what the customers are doing out there online. And they really need to pay attention to it. I mean, customers that use DR spend 9 minutes longer on the site, and there are 2 times as many VDPs per site, and they're 2.5 times more likely to submit a lead. But what we're seeing right now is leads generated by Cox Automotive Digital Retailing have 1.5 times higher closing rate, and they're more profitable. I mean, 29% higher gross profits from those deals that are actually submitted. And that's a big deal. It's a big impact. What would that mean to your dealership on those leads coming if you can increase the lead and not only the lead volume, but the profitability by 29%? And it kind of, again, goes back to, what we said earlier. Nobody complained about getting a website up too early.
Mo, those are great numbers, and I can just confirm that the dealers who have gone all in and really created a modern retail experience are not seeing any reduction in PVR. They're seeing their grosses up, they're seeing CSI up, and more importantly, they're able to reallocate salaries to pay their sales associates better and maybe reduce some of the high overhead costs associated with F&I. So there's a lot of changes coming to our industry, and I'm excited to cover them on our podcast. Mo, thank you so much for your time. And for everyone listening to today's podcast, remember every Monday I publish a new podcast. And if you have any suggestions on who I should have on the show or what topics I should cover, just shoot me an email, brian@brianpash.com. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you again on a future podcast.